Here are the top 8 things that buyers have said they regretted about buying a home in San Diego. You won't want to miss this. If you are new here, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Chris Spade at Keller Williams Realty, and I make all these videos to help you make sense of the real estate market. If you would do me a huge favor, please click that subscribe button. Also, click that little bell so you can be notified every single time I drop a fresh new video. Also, if you find value in this video, please comment below and share it with somebody who might find it useful. Also, tell me if I missed one of the regrets, and if there is a regret that you have made about buying a home and you want us to know about it. All right, so let's get to it. Here are 8 regrets that buyers have had when they were purchasing a home, specifically here in San Diego, in no particular order. The first thing is not getting proper inspections on a home. You know, when you're spending $1 million on average in San Diego, you want to make sure that you're getting all the right inspections on your home and that you're doing the ones that are pertaining to your specific property. So we've talked about this a little bit before, but it doesn't hurt to go over again. When you are buying a single family detached home, one of the inspections that you're going to want to get is a physical home inspection. This is going to give you a good idea of what the property is like and the condition it's in. Also, you're going to want to do a termite inspection, because if your house doesn't have termites, it will. The only time you could skip the termite inspection is if, one, you're going to do a huge remodel project and tear it down because you're going to be replacing a lot of stuff, or 2, is if the seller did a pre-termite inspection and they're providing that report to you and they've done the work on the property. Otherwise, I would always suggest that you get a termite inspection done on the property. Also, another very important inspection, which some people neglect, that is doing the sewer scope inspection. You want to do the sewer scope inspection because most of San Diego County is on cast iron, and that means the pipes are old under the house. So you want to get a plumber under there that has a sewer scope that can go and scope the line to make sure that it is in good condition. That's extremely important. The other inspection that I highly recommend that you do is do a foundation inspection if it's necessary. So, for example, if you're buying a house in North Park, let's say, many of those homes are on raised foundations. So you're going to want to get an inspection where an inspector crawls under the home. Now, your regular home inspector is going to do that. They will likely say you're going to need further inspection on the property unless they notice that they've gone under there and redone the whole foundation. Now, if you're on a slab foundation, you want to look for what's called sprawling along the sides of the property, or if you notice any raises in the floor and noticeable cracks in the foundation of the property. So then you're going to want to get a separate inspection on those. If you are buying a condo, I always highly recommend that you do a physical home inspection. And you're also going to want to do the second thing, which brings me to regret number 2, and that is making sure you have read your HOA documents. That is extremely important. Your HOA documents are going to outline 3 very specific things. 1, is the financials of the property healthy? You want to make sure that you're not going to get hit with any special assessments. Number 2, you're going to want to look at the HOA documents to know, will you be expecting an increase in dues, and has a reserve study been done? This is going to tell you what capital projects are looking like in the future. So these are all things that you're going to want to read. And you're also, third, going to want to know what the HOA covers. Now, brand new constructed projects, typically the HOA does not cover water, for example. So you're going to want to make sure that water is either covered or it's not covered. Typically in older buildings, the water is covered as part of your HOA fee, but you want to really know what is covered in that HOA fee and whether or not you're going to have any special assessments. And also, this is another thing, we'll just throw this as an add-on. You want to make sure that the building has already been retrofitted, the balconies have already been retrofitted, because there's a big brouhaha going on, and the balconies in most condo complexes need to all be replaced by 2025, especially if it's stick construction. So you want to make sure that your balcony has been replaced or that money has already been set aside. That way you're not going to have to come out of pocket to have that balcony rebuilt. Buying a house can be a very emotional process, so do not let emotions dictate whether or not you're going to be buying a home. What do I mean by that? Let me explain. So back in 2020 and 2021, people were getting so emotionally caught up in the process of buying a home that they were doing things that may not have been advisable or that they would have ever thought about doing in a different market. For example, skipping their home inspections altogether. Remember, we just talked about that in the regret number 1. Or shortening their time frames, or buying a house and waiving their appraisal contingency. These are all things, these are the emotions that drove the home buying process in 2021 and the beginning of 2022. So you just want to make sure that you don't allow your emotions to get wrapped up in it. A house can look very beautiful on the inside and it can be all done and look gorgeous, but the truth of the matter is it might just be lipstick on a pig. So you really want to make sure that you're not letting your emotions drive your real estate purchase. This one goes out to all my investors or first-time investors. One thing that you want to do is, if you're buying an investment property, is make sure that you have some wiggle room on the numbers, because some people didn't predict the amount of wiggle room that they were going to have on the numbers, and always over budget your expenses on the property so that way it's not a negative cash flow. So what do I mean by that? Typically when you buy an investment property, you do have to put 25% down. Most of the time those will already come tenant occupied, which means the tenant is paying a specific amount of rent. Now, after you take control of the property, you are allowed to raise the rent, but you can't raise it more than 10% annually. So you can tack on that 10%, or the tenant can choose to leave. It's up to them. But in most cases, you're going to tack on the extra 10% because you're going to need it. But the other thing is, you know, even if you did do your due diligence and got your home inspection done, many people still did not do a thorough job on the numbers and what that looks like. So for example, one of the things that we're seeing is rents are starting to come down in San Diego County just slightly. Not a lot, but they're coming down just slightly. And renters are wanting quality products, which means that you're going to have to make your property over the top if you want to get and command higher rents on these properties. So you can't just buy a 4-unit property that hasn't been remodeled since the 40s and expect to charge $2,700 a month when they can go over to the Winslow in University Heights and get something brand new with a washer and dryer in their unit and pay the same price. So you're just going to want to give yourself some wiggle room on those numbers. Make sure that they're going to work out for you and for your budget, because you want to be at least $200 positive cash flow. Another regret, which goes along with our investors, is doing the research on short-term rentals. San Diego does have short-term rental restrictions, and you want to make sure that you are abiding by those, especially if you are at the beach. So you want to make sure, I can't tell you how many code violations are going on in the city of San Diego because of short-term rentals and because people don't have the proper paperwork to run a short-term rental business. So you want to make sure that you have not screwed yourself in terms of short-term rentals. Make sure you do your homework, make sure that everything is done right. We can only do so much for you, but you have to make sure that you have the proper paperwork in place, because if not, the city's going to come knocking on your door and shut you down. Let's talk about affordability for just a second. Now, we do know that San Diego is the most expensive city in the United States to live in, and sadly, it never used to be that way. When I moved here 30 years ago, you could actually have a minimum wage job and afford to live here, but it's gotten very, very expensive to live in San Diego. So affordability is a big issue. You want to make sure that you are comfortable with your mortgage payment and all the other nuances that come with that. So when you buy a house, we talk about PITI, that's principal, interest, tax, and insurance. And in some cases, you're also going to have an HOA fee. Now, you're going to want to make sure that you're able to afford that payment. You're going to want to be able to make sure that that is going to be a comfortable amount for you. Now, keep in mind, it's always going to be higher than what you're paying in rent. So if you're paying $1,200 for your rent right now, you're really not going to find a house in San Diego that is going to give you an HOA payment with principal, tax, interest, tax, and insurance included for $1,200. So you are going to be spending more. But the good news is, talk to your tax professional, because you're going to be able to take more home, and you're going to be able to write off the interest on that. These are all questions that you want to ask your tax preparer to see, how can I break even at the end of the year and still afford this and build up my equity? But just make sure that you are comfortable with that. Some of my clients are just getting side hustles to make it happen, not getting complete second jobs, but just a little side hustle to make all that happen. So that's one thing that you can do, but just make sure that the affordability and the payment makes sense. The other thing you want to consider is future resale of a property. There's been times where I've told people, don't buy a home, don't buy this home, don't buy this home here, because I'm thinking future resale down the road. Could I make a sale today? Yes, I could make a sale today. It might be a house you might be able to afford, but the truth of the matter is future resale down the road is going to be very hard. You're gonna wanna see what is around that property. There are some neighborhoods where there's just a lot of commercial and it's a little bit harder to sell down the road, or you don't know what the future is gonna hold for a specific area. So you just wanna make sure that future resale is sitting somewhere in the back of your head, because you just wanna make sure that we're gonna be able to help you return a profit and build your equity when we go to sell the house down the road. And finally, the biggest regret people had is not having a plan in place or a plan B if for whatever reason the home they purchased did not work out, because there are costs associated with selling a home. And I have had some clients who have had to resell their home very, very quickly after purchasing it because it was going to not work out for one reason or another. Now, we will always get you through that, but we just also want to have a plan B just in case the inevitable pops up. Tell us what you think below. Are there any regrets that you've had when you go to buy a house anywhere in the country, but specifically here in San Diego? If you would like to book an appointment with me, my contact information and my calendar link is below. You can get me on the phone, you can get me on Zoom, or we can meet in person in my office. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.